You probably think they walked away completely fine, untouched by the silence you finally gave them. But what if I told you that beneath that cold exterior, a deeply destructive unraveling is taking place? Today, we are exposing the 5 hidden stages of suffering a narcissist goes through when you finally leave for good. You will want to stay until the end for this one. When you finally pack your bags, block their number, and shut that heavy door, society tells you they just move on to the next target. And yes, sometimes it looks exactly like that on the surface. But underneath the new supply and the fake smiles, a profound psychological panic is quietly brewing. It is a very specific type of agony they will never admit to feeling. You have to understand that your departure wasn't just a breakup to them. It was a direct threat to their entire psychological survival. You were the mirror reflecting back the grand illusion they needed to believe about themselves. When you leave, you don't just break their heart, you shatter their delusion. And the mind of a narcissist cannot tolerate that shattering. The first stage of their suffering always begins with profound disbelief. It is a sheer, arrogant denial that you actually had the strength to walk away. In their distorted reality, they wrote the script, they directed the movie, and you were just an extra meant to follow their cues. The fact that you walked off the stage completely breaks their internal narrative. They expect you to come crawling back, begging for the scraps of affection they occasionally threw your way. So they wait. They sit in that initial arrogance, convinced that your absence is just a temporary temper tantrum. It feels impossible to them that you finally realized your worth. They truly believe they are the center of your universe, even in the silence. But as the days turn into weeks, and your silence remains unbroken, the disbelief starts to curdle into something far more toxic. The phone isn't ringing. The dramatic text messages they expected from you never arrive. That is when the reality begins to seep into their fragmented mind. You are actually gone. And that realization sparks the second stage of their suffering. Stage 2 is characterized by a violent, seething rage. It is not the normal sadness of losing a partner. It is the furious indignation of a master losing control of their puppet. How dare you abandon them? How dare you decide that you deserve better than the chaos they provided? They are furious because your departure proves that they are not omnipotent after all. You see, this rage is actually a desperate defense mechanism. If they can make you the villain, they don't have to look at their own brokenness. They will rewrite the history of your entire relationship just to paint themselves as the ultimate victim. They need to hate you right now because the only alternative is admitting that they drove a beautiful thing away. During this angry phase, you might hear whispers from mutual friends about the terrible things they are saying about you. It is a smear campaign designed to destroy your reputation before you can expose their true nature. They are frantically trying to control the narrative because they are terrified of what you might say. Your silence is their biggest perceived threat. But no matter how loudly they shout about how terrible you were, the echo in their empty room tells a different story. The smear campaign is exhausting, and it doesn't fill the void you left behind. They are burning through their energy trying to convince everyone else that they are fine. And that brings us to the quiet, terrifying drop into the third phase of this. The third stage is where the panic truly sets in. We call this the frantic replacement phase. The narcissist suddenly realizes that they are standing completely alone with their own dark thoughts. They cannot self-soothe. They require an external battery pack to feel alive, and their primary power source, you, has just unplugged permanently. They are running on empty. To numb this terrifying emptiness, they will rush out to find new supply. This is the part that usually hurts survivors the most. You watch them parade a new partner around, looking disgustingly happy just weeks after you left. But I need you to understand exactly what you are witnessing. It is not true love. It is a psychological emergency room triage for their ego. They are hastily slapping a bandage over a gaping emotional wound. This new person isn't an upgrade. They are simply an emotional hostage brought in to reflect a shiny new image. The narcissist is projecting a fantasy of perfection so intensely because internally, they are bleeding out. They desperately need the world to see them as desirable to avoid facing reality. But the tragedy of this frantic replacement is that it never actually works. A new person cannot instantly provide the deep, rich supply of energy they spent years extracting from you. They are chasing a high they can no longer reach. They might be smiling in their photos, but behind closed doors, the same old dysregulation is creeping back in. It is all smoke and mirrors. You were the one who learned how to navigate their minefields. You absorbed their projections and managed their moods. This new stranger doesn't know the rules of the game yet. The narcissist quickly realizes that training a new victim takes an enormous amount of psychological labor. And deep down, they resent this new person for simply not being the comfortable home you were. This creates a deeply hidden layer of suffering. They are performing the role of the perfect partner to the new supply, but they are secretly exhausted. The mask feels incredibly heavy. They are hyper-aware that their internal void is still hollow, echoing with your absence. The shiny new toy distracted them for a moment, but the profound boredom is already returning. They will never let you see this exhaustion, of course. Their entire existence is predicated on maintaining the illusion of absolute superiority. But psychological gravity always wins in the end. The effort it takes to suppress their own pathology while seducing a new target is draining their reserves. They are essentially a walking contradiction, decaying from the inside. This brings them to the creeping realization that you were unique. They spent years degrading you, making you feel entirely replaceable, but now they are discovering the cold truth. Very few people possess the specific blend of empathy, patience, and resilience that you brought to their chaotic life. The rare quality of your devotion is becoming painfully apparent to them. Yet, their toxic pride prevents them from admitting this loss. They are trapped in a prison of their own making, forced to pretend they are perfectly fine while quietly suffocating in the shallow waters of their new relationships. They are haunted by the stability you provided, even as they continuously punish you in their minds for daring to take that stability away. This internal war begins to fray their edges. The carefully constructed facade starts showing microscopic cracks. They might start drinking more, becoming unusually reckless, or showing intense flashes of irritability with their new supply. The psychological pressure of denying their grief and anger is building toward a critical mass. The mask is inevitably preparing to slip. That brings us to stage 4, the inescapable narcissistic collapse. This is the dramatic turning point where all their defenses simply stop working. The external validation they have been desperately scraping together is no longer enough to medicate their profound internal shame. It feels like the ground beneath their feet is finally giving way, plunging them into darkness. A narcissistic collapse is not a beautiful awakening. They do not suddenly grow a conscience or deeply regret how they treated you. Instead, it is an ego death without the benefit of actual rebirth. They experience a profound, suffocating paranoia. The world they so ruthlessly tried to control has slipped entirely through their fingers, leaving them feeling completely naked. During a true collapse, the narcissist becomes violently depressed. The grandiose delusions they used to shield themselves from their own self-hatred have shattered. Without you there to absorb their toxicity, all that venom has nowhere to go but inward. They are finally forced to sit in the filthy, neglected rooms of their own minds, and the psychological stench is unbearable. You might actually see this collapse from a distance. Their social media presence might abruptly go dark, or they might post bizarre, deeply victimized monologues. Their life starts falling apart in tangible ways, losing jobs, alienating friends, or ruining their new relationships. The sheer exhaustion of trying to outrun their own empty reflection has utterly defeated them. This is often when the hoovering attempt occurs. In a state of sheer panic, they reach back out to you. They might send a pathetic apology, a nostalgic photograph, or a sudden crisis that supposedly only you can solve. Do not mistake this for love. It is a drowning man trying to pull you underwater just so he can catch his breath. It is always about their absolute survival. When you ignore that hoovering attempt, the collapse deepens exponentially. They are met with a brick wall of silence where your boundless empathy used to be. That silence is the most agonizing sound they have ever heard. It confirms their absolute worst fear, that they are fundamentally unlovable, and that their protective magic has completely stopped working on you. You have to realize the monumental power in your lack of response. By doing nothing at all, you are forcing them to face the consequences of their actions. They are begging you to hand them back their power, to validate their existence with even a negative reaction. When you refuse to play the game, they are left stumbling blindly in a dark void of their own creation. This profound suffering is invisible to society, but deeply felt in their bones. They wake up in the middle of the night with a terrifying sense of dread. The ghosts of the people they have destroyed, including you, are crowding their mental space. They cannot sleep, they cannot find peace, and no amount of new supply can wash away the underlying terror of their existence. They look in the mirror and, for fleeting moments, they actually see the monster. Their psychological defense mechanisms briefly glitch, forcing them to glimpse the wreckage they leave behind. It is a horrifying flash of self-awareness that they immediately try to repress. But the sheer mental effort required to push that truth back down is actively tearing them apart. The tragedy of this moment is that they will never seek genuine help. Instead of using this collapse to heal, they double down on their pathology. They rebuild the false self, thicker and more rigid than before. They survive the collapse, but they emerge from it more dangerous, more callous, and more profoundly disconnected from humanity than they were when you left. Now we enter stage 5, the permanent, haunting void. This is the long-term consequence of your absence. Over time, the acute panic of the collapse fades, but it leaves behind a chronic, low-grade misery. They learn how to function again, how to mirror normal human emotions, but the machinery is broken. They are essentially moving through life as hollow, robotic shells. They will always carry the quiet phantom limb of your love. Even years later, when they have seemingly moved on with someone else, you remain the benchmark they secretly measure everything against. They know they had someone truly extraordinary, and they know their own brokenness ruined it. It is a silent, unacknowledged grief that haunts every corner of their new life. You must understand that they do not miss you in the way healthy people miss a lost love. They do not miss your smile or your laughter. They miss how you made them feel about themselves. They mourn the loss of the incredible utility you provided. They are grieving the destruction of their own favorite mirror, not the beautiful person who happened to be standing behind it. As they age, this haunting void only grows wider and deeper. The superficial charm that once won them endless new supply begins to fade. The shiny tactics they used to trap beautiful souls like you stop working as well. Their world shrinks significantly. They find themselves surrounded by shallow connections, unable to secure the profound devotion they threw away with you. The consequence of their pathology is absolute, terrifying isolation. Even when they are in a crowded room, even when they are sleeping next to their new spouse, they are entirely alone. They cannot experience genuine intimacy because that requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like death to them. They have constructed a fortress that keeps out both pain and pure love. They will spend the rest of their lives curating a highlight reel to prove to you, and to themselves, that they won the breakup. But true winners do not need to desperately prove they are winning. Every single orchestrated photo, every brag, every public display of affection is a trauma response to your absence. They are shouting into the void, hoping you are still watching. But you aren't watching anymore. And that is the ultimate consequence they never prepared for. The punishment for their abuse is not that you yell at them or destroy their life. It is that you peacefully evaporate from their existence. You take your empathy, your light, and your forgiveness, and you pack it all away. You leave them stranded with nothing but their own company. Think about what it must feel like to be them. To constantly need admiration but instantly despise anyone who gives it. To live in perpetual fear of being exposed. To know, deep in your core, that every single person who truly gets to know you will eventually run away. It is a bleak, miserable existence masked by arrogance. They are trapped in a psychological solitary confinement. They thought they broke you. They truly believed that walking away would destroy your spirit. But watching you rise from the ashes is the final, agonizing wound to their ego. Your success, your peace, and your indifference act like a mirror reflecting their ultimate failure. You survived them. And in doing so, you proved that they were never the god they pretended to be. Your radiant healing is their permanent suffering. Every time you smile without them, it challenges their grandiosity. Every time you set a boundary with someone else, it reminds them of the access they lost. They have to live with the unchangeable fact that they held something profoundly rare in their hands, and through their own arrogant blindness, they crushed it into dust. I know you spent so much time wondering if they were actually happy without you. You stared at those pictures of their new life, feeling like you were the one who lost. But I need you to stop believing the carefully manufactured lies of a disordered mind. The reality is that true peace is structurally impossible for them. Their suffering is baked into their own twisted biology. You walked away carrying a crushing amount of pain, but that pain had an expiration date. You cried, you grieved, you went to therapy, and you slowly rebuilt your nervous system. You did the grueling, beautiful work of healing your own soul. Your suffering was temporary. It was a birth canal leading to a much stronger version of yourself. Their suffering is a permanent life sentence. They do not possess the internal hardware required for introspection or genuine transformation. While you were learning how to love yourself, they were just learning how to manipulate better. You have evolved entirely out of their toxic reach. You are now speaking a language of emotional maturity that they cannot even comprehend. The vast distance between you is your ultimate victory. Do not waste another ounce of your precious empathy feeling sorry for their miserable state. You gave them 1,000 chances to meet you in the light, and they chose the darkness every single time. It is perfectly okay to walk away and let them drown in the oceans they created. You are not a rehabilitation center for broken souls who absolutely refuse to heal themselves. Your silence is the loudest and most powerful statement you could ever make. It is an impenetrable shield protecting your hard-earned peace. Every day you maintain no contact, you are starving their pathology and feeding your own remarkable strength. You are reclaiming the narrative of your own life. Let them wonder what you are doing. Let them sit in the heavy silence of your absence. I want you to take a deep, grounding breath and realize just how far you have truly come. You survived a psychological war zone that destroys many people. You were targeted specifically because you have an abundance of light, compassion, and fierce resilience. They tried to steal that light to illuminate their own darkness, but they failed. Your fire belongs entirely to you again. Forgive yourself for the time you spent believing their illusions. You were interacting with a mirage, fighting for a ghost that never truly existed. You loved deeply, and there is no shame in having a beautiful, open heart. The only shame belongs to the one who weaponized your beautiful love against you. Let go of the guilt, because it was never your burden to carry in the first place. As you move forward, protect your energy with unapologetic ferocity. You now possess a deeply profound superpower. You can spot a predatory spirit from a mile away. You know the subtle signs, the love bombing, the hollow promises. You will never be easily fooled again. The painful education you received in that toxic relationship has practically bulletproofed your future boundaries. They are stuck in a tragic, endless loop of their own creation, repeating the exact same destructive cycle until they die. But your story is wildly different. The heavy chains have finally been broken. The expansive, brilliant world is completely open to you now. You have the absolute freedom to build a life filled with genuine safety, authentic connection, and breathtaking peace. You didn't just survive them, you completely outgrew them. So stand tall in your absolute power, knowing they are quietly suffering in the very void they tried to bury you in. You are the beautiful one who got away. You are the one who finally broke the cycle. They will spend their entire miserable life regretting losing you, but you will spend yours finally remembering who you are.